Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zeddy here, and I am back at it again to drop yet another banger of a what if. This being, what if Deku was a Hyuga descendant, or what if Deku essentially just had the Byakugan? This is going to be yet another one of those Dekus that is going to be having hands that will be thrown at everybody. No discrimination. Deku will be throwing the hands out with everybody on sight, and this man Deku is going to be pretty OP in the verse of My Hero. Well, as OP as a Hyuga would be in the My Hero Academia verse. That being said, in case you guys didn't know, I have a Discord server which you can join by clicking the link down in the description, as well as I'm now selling merch. Yes, boys, if you've ever wanted to buy any Zedder merch or simply help out the channel, it would mean a whole lot if you guys were to go check out the store. There's a couple of designs right now. There's currently 3. There's, they're all pretty cool. They look pretty cool. So if you want to go check it out, just check out the link. If you don't, it's all good, as long as it would help to click the link, because it basically makes it so that other people can see the link more, and yada yada yada. That being said, the intro's already 1 minute in and of itself, so we're just going to go ahead and
get started.
Okay, so this is the part where I'm now going to be covering the beginning of what if Deku was a Hyuga. Now, many of you guys are probably expecting for me to have Deku have Neji's hair color, or for him to be born with the Byakugan off rip. Well, I have good news and bad news. Number one, the good news is that Deku will be born with the Byakugan. However, the bad news is that Deku is not going to be looking like any previous Hyuga that has ever existed. Meaning, no, he's not going to be looking like Hinata, and no, he's not going to be looking like Neji. He's not even going to have the hair color of the Hyuga. See, Deku is essentially a Hyuga descendant, and many of you guys are probably wondering what side of the family he gets it from. Well, for this, I'm going to be saying that Deku gets the Hyuga, side of the family from essentially Inko. Now, this is the part where many of you guys are probably wondering how in the world Deku is a Hyuga descendant. Well, to put it bluntly, essentially all I'm going to have happen is just that the Naruto world and the My Hero world are pretty much going to be the same thing. Just that a bunch of years, a bunch of decades have basically passed by, and technology advanced, chakra turned into quirks, and yada yada yada. You guys get the point. Essentially the world of Naruto evolved, and the Hyugas and all that stuff basically all ended up dying off. However, the Hyuga bloodline kept going, and a lot of people stopped getting the Byakugan, except for today. The day that Deku was born is essentially going to be the day of the Hyuga's rebirth. That being said, Deku will be born with the green hair and the eyes of the Byakugan. Now, immediately, Hisashi and Inko would both be like, yo, that must be his quirk. And the doctor would, of course, confirm that his eyes seem to be pretty special. It may have something to do with his quirk. Deku would later on go home, and this is when Deku would basically just have nothing going on with his eyes, really. See, the Hyuga eyes don't really do nothing in their natural state, because essentially the Hyugas, they need to do that little Byakugan activate, and then with their eyes that get all crunched up and can finally use the ability. Yeah, Deku still doesn't know how to do that. So we're just going to say that for the next couple of years, up until Deku is about the age of, let's say, Hinata started training at the age of 4, I believe. So I'm just going to say Deku's 4, all right? Deku's going to grow up with a huge love of martial arts, and Deku is going to be the same person he was, except in this version of events, Deku actually is going to like to have his hair longer. He's going to like to have his hair along the longer side of things, and Deku is honestly just going to get picked on a lot for this, this choice of hairstyle. Deku's going to grow up alongside Bakugo, and in this version of events, Deku's not going to be the same person that he was in the original. He's going to have a little bit of a passive personality, but if you go on to make Deku mad, he is not going to be afraid to fold you like a lawn chair. So yeah, every time Bakugo tried something up until he got his quirk, Bakugo never just let it slide and just was like, oh yeah, I'm a Deku, I guess since you call me that, I'm just gonna let it slide. Nah, Bakugo called him a Deku and said it's someone who can't do anything, and Deku got mad, bro. This was the day that he activated the Byakugan. He quite literally went on to activate it, his eyes got into the formation, and Deku just proceeded hit Bakugo with the Hyuga fighting style gentle fist. Now, it was like a very, very whack, just bad form and bad everything. He performed it pretty badly, but the point got across. He ended up hitting Bakugo's, one of Bakugo's chakra points, seeing as, you know, the human body has now evolved to the point where now, instead of having as many as they did before, now they only have, like, let's say 64 chakra paths now. And yeah, Deku ended up closing at least 2 of them. So Bakugo got knocked out and all the kids ran away from Deku. They were like, nope, not having it. And Deku, yeah, he folded Bakugo and just ran away because that man was not about to get in trouble. Bakugo started it, right? And so Deku basically just proceeds to get out of there and go home. This is when Deku wouldn't be able to deactivate the Byakugan, and he would end up having to go to the quirk doctor, where they would basically tell Deku that his quirk is essentially sort of x-ray vision like eyes. His eyes essentially grant him the ability to see within the human body and give him essentially gives him all the abilities of the Byakugan. I'm not about to sit here and explain something that many of you guys already know. So yeah, Deku has all of the abilities of the Byakugan. And this is when we will now be having a little bit of a time skip up until the day of the sludge villain incident. See, during all this time, Deku would have basically just spent his time, training on martial arts. He would have done Deku at this point would be a little bit of he would be a master at a little bit of everything. However, his primary fighting style is that of the gentle fist. Now, many of you guys are probably wondering what the gentle fist is and how Deku even knows it. See, the gentle fist isn't something that completely died off. A lot of people pass it on to each other, and therefore there's books on the gentle fist techniques. Some people around the world use the gentle fist technique. However, they cannot flesh out its full potential because of the fact that they do not have the Byakugan. So a lot of them have very pale imitations of the original gentle fist. But due to the fact that there's some scriptures and stuff like that, Deku was able to piece together how to use the fighting style. And at this point, Deku is now about as good as Neji was during the time of the Chunin exam. So Deku is, pretty well off. And during the 10-month little time skip, actually, I'm not going to go ahead of myself, but yeah, this one we're now going to go to the day of the sludge villain, right? Deku has all that. At this point, Deku essentially looks like Neji, kind of-ish. He kind of looks like a little bit of a blend of Neji and Eren, where he has long hair similar to Eren, and he basically has it like that. His build is on the more muscular side instead of the leaned out side like Neji, because in this version, Deku has literal weights instead of just calisthenics. So Deku is a lot more ripped than most Hyugas, and Deku is extremely fast. This man Deku has the fastest hands like ever. This man Deku has some serious hands. So yeah, Deku obviously is going to just be in class. He's gonna just be talking to a couple of girls, which are, all over Deku. They're just like, hey, you wanna maybe go out later? Deku's like, nah, not today. I got my mom's birthday later. And Deku would basically just sit back in the class, just writing down some notes about the earlier fight. Little Mount Lady stuff and all that stuff in the Camino Woods. Yeah, that's basically what Deku's writing down. Now, this is when Bakugo would walk into class and give Deku one of his normal glares. Since Bakugo and Deku don't really get along in this version, Bakugo would then proceed to basically be like, yeah, I'm gonna be the greatest. Don't compare me to these losers, teach. Yada, yada, yada. You guys get the point. Bakugo's being Bakugo, essentially. Now, this is when Deku would basically just go through the rest of the class, and by the end of the class, Bakugo would just go up to Deku after the teacher basically said that Deku is also going to go to UA. Bakugo would walk up to Deku's desk as he would say, hey Deku, don't you even think about applying to UA. Those little eyes of yours aren't going to get you so far. Last time we ever fought was in middle school, and if I do remember, you won, but it's been some time since then, and that quirk of yours hasn't evolved much from what I can see. Deku would immediately activate the eyes of the Byakugan and stand up in Bakugo's face. As Bakugo would just smirk at him, this is when Bakugo's goons would immediately back up and Bakugo would say, what are you doing? As they would both run away, Deku would immediately get into the fighting style of the Hyugas, and Bakugo would just say, bring it on, nerd. He would proceed to rush at Deku as Bakugo would just be like, throwing an explosion straight at Deku's direction. Deku would immediately just kind of dodge the attack by weaving, moving his arm, and then he would proceed to strike him in 12 of Bakugo's chakra points, causing Bakugo to fall down to the ground unconscious. Deku would then grab his things. I have no idea where I was in the recording. I just had to pause it because my dad came in here telling me, hey, go to sleep early. But that's not the point. Point is, Deku proceeded to fold Bakugo, and this is when he would essentially start walking throughout the tunnel of the sludge villain. Well, basically what happens in canon. Deku would start walking down there, and as many of us know, Deku would end up eventually running into the sludge villain. See, Deku would do this just like any other day, and of course, the sludge villain's just chilling there, being like, give me your body, kid. Deku would immediately look towards the sludge villain, and on instant, Deku would shoot an air pump straight at the sludge villain, which causes a pretty big portion of the sludge villain to just completely jump off of its body. Deku would then proceed to basically look at the sludge villain as he would smirk and then say, one palm, two palm. He would just start throwing a bunch of palms at the sludge villain as he causes the sludge villain to pretty much disperse everywhere. This is when All Might would come out of the tunnel and just be like, I am here. As he would see Deku in the fighting stance that he's in, as All Might would just be like, kid, have you seen the slut? As before he finishes the sentence, he would see that Deku's going over to pick up pieces of the sludge villain, and Deku would be like, my word, did you do this, kid? Deku would look at All Might and say, All Might? As All Might would just smile and say, the one and only. This is when Deku would just say, yeah, I used my quirk to beat that thing and try to take my body or something like that. All Might would immediately just smile as he would say, how the youth have gotten stronger. He would pack up the sludge villain and jump out of there. So he would ask Deku's name, Deku would give it, and this is when, Deku would end up going home. The sludge villain with Bakugo would never happen, and we will now jump over to the 10-month training arc, which Deku's going to be having. Now, during these 10 months, Deku would end up using this time to essentially use shuriken, kunai, and a sword. Actually, not a sword, just kunai and stuff like that, right? Deku would start learning more and more fighting styles that are close range, and Deku would end up even working on a certain attack that Deku has been wanting to, basically get even stronger, the air palms. That's the one thing that Deku needs to work on, because while he may have great close combat prowess, when it comes to long-range attackers and people who might have lightning or fire or anything in general that is just long-range attacked, Deku will have a very hard time fighting against them, which is why Deku during this 10 months is basically going to take the time to essentially work on the air palms, and he would even work on the tiger palms, the ones that Hinata has when she has like the blue flames and like the little cat come out of her. Yeah, it's basically what Deku, the tiger palms, right? He'd basically work on that during the 10 months, and I'm just kind of going to skip over the 10 months, seeing as Deku trains, we all know that there's not really anything that goes on here, so I'm just going to skip, right? We're now going to go straight to the day where Deku has to take the entrance exam, and of course Deku would go in there as Deku would just start looking around immediately. He would take note of some boy with blue hair. He would see that Bakugo's right next to him, to which Bakugo's not saying a word to him, but he is glaring at him, and Deku would immediately glare back at Bakugo, which would cause Bakugo to back off. It's at this point that Deku and Bakugo would both just kind of agree on one thing. They both do not like each other one bit. And it's at this point that they would both kind of just ignore each other as they would take the test. Deku would, of course, pass because the man is not dumb. And it's at this point that he would just kind of start doing his normal thing, right? Deku would just start doing his thing, and this is when essentially they would have to go outside due to the fact that now they finally have to take the what's it called? Little quirk, the physical part of the entrance exam. Yeah, the robot portion basically is what he has to take now. Now, of course, Deku would do just that, and well, this is when it will basically lead Deku to, of course, entrance exam, which is, pretty normal and casual stuff. And Deku, as soon as the entrance exam starts, he would take note of a girl by the name of Ochako Uraraka. He would see that she looks extremely nervous, and Deku would, of course, proceed to walk over to her. He would end up asking her how she is, and Uraraka would just be like, little nervous, not gonna lie. Deku would just kind of speak up and be like, yeah, I could tell. Uraraka would immediately say, hey, as she would turn towards his direction, she would see Deku's long hair, and she would immediately just be like, you have pretty eyes. Deku would smile as he would say thanks, and this is when Deku would basically proceed to go up to Uraraka, as he would basically tell her to breathe in and out, and to focus on one thing: passing the exam. Don't focus on how many points you're going to get or anything other than doing your best, because as long as you do just that, you will not have failed, even if you manage to knock it into the school. Uraraka would look at Deku with like a little bit of a just completely astounded expression on their face and like a little bit of looking up to Deku, as Deku would then basically say bye and walk over to the front. This is when he would basically jump over the wall, as President Mike would just kind of not say anything because he didn't notice Deku. But about 5 minutes into it, Deku would have already gotten 50 points, and President Mike would be like, go! What you guys think this was? You guys saw that kid go and you didn't follow? Everybody would be like, what? He's allowed to do that? When everybody would just start going straight in through the gate and jumping over it, right? Everybody would rush in there, and people would glare at Deku just like, why'd you get to go in first? Deku would say there's no countdowns in a real battle. And people would look angry at Deku, but this is when President Mike would go on the little intercom thing and say, there's no countdowns in a battle. He's right. You guys think that villains are going to let you guys decide when and where the battle starts? No, they won't. As he would say, go! And everybody would immediately just start doing their own thing, destroying robots. But at this point, Deku now gets an extra 10 minutes to obliterate robots. And Deku would end up basically getting about 365 robot points. He would have gone haywire and just completely started destroying every single robot in his path. This would lead to the zero pointer, of course, approaching out of nowhere, and Deku would basically proceed to rush at the zero pointer. Seeing as Uraraka was under her, he would grab her as he would save her life just barely. And as the zero pointer comes down to punch Deku, Deku would shoot the strongest air palm he could muster, causing the sludge villain's arm to basically fly out of his direction. Deku would have barely stopped the sludge villain's hand from crushing both of them, as he would grab Uraraka. And All Might and everybody in the stands watching would have taken great note of this. This is when Deku would save Uraraka, taking her to Recovery Girl and basically dipping out after he ends up getting her number. This is when Deku would end up having about 3 days where he just chills and goes to the mall, goes for a little bit of just normal shopping. And this is when Deku would walk into a store, which it's called Zether Shop. What? Zether Shop? Am I about to plug my merch? What? Yeah, I'm about to do a shameless plug. Boys, in case you guys, haven't heard me, since, I have said it about 1,000,000 times, I have merch. So if you guys want to buy anything, link down in the description. It's all pretty much cheap. And if you go now, you can get a 15% discount, which makes the merch even cheaper than it already is. But yeah, that's basically all you have to hear from me. That being said, Deku would of course go through the next couple of days, and this is when Deku would proceed to, well, essentially just go back home, as he would spend the next night, and this is when he would get his letter, basically tell him that he's accepted. And Deku will of course wake up the day of UA, as he would get dressed up, and Inko would drive him to school. Inko would tell Deku that she's so proud of him, and Deku would just give her a little bit of a polite smile, as he would basically walk inside of the doors of UA. Apologies if you guys hear any background noise. My little brother is speaking so loud right now. But that being said, many of you guys probably don't even hear it, just because, my voice is pretty loud, plus the fact that I have background music, which kind of mutes out the sound in general. That being said, though, guys, yeah, Deku, he walks over to UA, and he makes it to the door. Immediately upon walking in, he would see Bakugo and Ida arguing, as he would say, just great. Another 3 years of dealing with this loser. As he would walk over to the back of the class, Bakugo would immediately glare at Deku, and he would say, why don't you got a staring problem, Bakugo? As Bakugo would just say, I don't know, do I? This one, Bakugo would just chuckle a little bit, as Ida would say, something going on between you two? Deku would then look at him and say, well, in case you don't want what happened the other day to happen again, I suggest you leave me alone. As Bakugo would get a brief flashback of what happened, Bakugo would then kind of grit his teeth, as he's just like, ugh. This is when Deku would then just chuckle, as he would then go over to the back, where he would proceed to sit right next to Uraraka. As he would say, hey, Uraraka would say, oh, hey. Deku would look at her, as he would basically proceed to talk to her for the next couple of minutes. This is when Aizawa would of course wake up, as he's just like, it took you guys 8 seconds to settle down. And of course Aizawa would go on and do his normal thing, which is annoy everybody, right? No, I'm totally kidding. Aizawa, I love you, but still, it's like, man, bro, do you really got to be this dry to your students? They would all get changed, and this is when they would all basically meet him outside. He would end up throwing the ball straight at Deku's direction, as he would end up basically telling him that he needs to throw it as far as he can within the range of the circle. In case any of you guys were wondering, yes, Uraraka did say, what about orientation? And, he got in the fitting room, and people looked at him because the man is ripped. He's built like a literal Greek god. Yeah, he's basically built like Eren Yeager, green hair, and the Byakugan, essentially is what Deku's built like. That being said, no, I will not do any Attack on Titan what ifs, in case any of you guys are wondering. I mean, actually, I might someday do one where Deku basically has the gear and all that stuff and the swords. You know, that might be something a little cool that you guys might be interested. I don't know. Anyways, that being said, this isn't what if Deku was Eren Yeager. This is what if Deku with the Byakugan. That being said, Deku would basically go over to the ball as he would charge up his chakra within his hand and throw it a whopping 399 meters. Now, actually, no, I'm gonna say 599 meters. Bakugo would go up and throw an explosion, going even further than Deku, as he would chuckle and then realize that he needed his quirk to throw it that far. Deku must have used nothing but his pure physical strength and almost gotten 600. Bakugo would get a little irked by that, and this is when they would go through the rest of the portions of the exam. They would have the race, to which Deku would blitz pretty easily because, you know, characters in Naruto are pretty fast. And in terms of the grip strength, Deku destroys the machine. The side-to-side lunges, Deku is a Hyuga, one of the fastest moving hand-to-hand combatants. So yeah, Deku definitely blitzes through that. And with that being said, he goes through the rest of the exams pretty swiftly, if I do say so myself, right? And well, this is when now everything kind of ends on a good note, with Deku passing everything and Deku kind of just chilling with, you know, slight things happening here and there. Basically, after the quirk exam, Aizawa was pretty shocked, and everybody's just like, yo, that kid is broken. Momo has a little bit more of an interest in Deku than Todoroki, and Uraraka is just solidifying the notion that, yeah, Deku's gonna be her mans. And in case, I'm gonna ask you guys here now, do you guys want Uraraka to be the ship for this what if? Do you guys want Ino, no, not Ino, but what's it called, Momo to be the ship of this what if, or someone else? Whoever it is you guys want to be the ship for this what if, make sure you guys comment it down below. But with that being said, this is where I'm going to be leaving off this part for what if Deku was a Hyuga descendant. The next part, we're basically going to be jumping in straight into the heroes versus villains, the USJ, and probably the UA Sports Festival, seeing as this is most likely going to be a 3-parted series. That being said, I love each and every single one of you guys. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.